Hi everyone, welcome to my room. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that I've been frequently asked to cover in a video, and I have covered this topic in videos I made years ago at this point, but not a lot since then. And before I actually embark on the discussion of the topic, I'll also provide an explanation as to why I haven't discussed it as often as I could have. But prior to that, I need to do the obligatory bit of promoting. Look at this book. Now, this book, I don't know if you're noticing, if you've been watching my videos recently, but actually the cover of this one is a little bit more orange, bright orange, than the one I had before, because the book I had before of The Ecstatic Soul was my dad's. He had kind of lent it to me to be autographed and given back to him. These are, I actually have few more author copies here, so it's very nice. But just to remind you that for less than $10, you can get the deepest research into the INFJ type ever conducted. Links down below, description box, all the countries, all the Amazon links are available, ebook or paperback format. Do not miss this opportunity if you want to have a real deep knowledge of the INFJ. Okay, so INFJs and music. Like I said, it's a topic that is frequently returning as a suggestion by viewers and by friends. And question is, why do I not tackle it more often? And what am I going to be talking about in this video? Because I bet you're very curious about this. You know, here's the thing. INFJs in music, INFJs in cinema, INFJs and a particular topic, right? Any topic. You can put INFJ and a particular topic. All that is required for the audience to say that it resonates with what you're saying is that you're seen as a credible INFJ type, more or less. And sometimes it doesn't even seem to be required, because you can seem like an INFJ type without really being an INFJ type. So this is fraught with difficulties, because my interest, I think, when it comes to making videos, is not necessarily to just talk about random things and say, these are INFJ things, and then the audience is going to be like, oh yeah, these are INFJ things because Ren said that. Now that happens a lot with a lot of different channels. That's trusting someone on authority because that person is seen as having a position of authority. Now, I'm not denying that I have a minor position of authority insofar as I'm an INFJ YouTuber with a strongly cohesive INFJ community, but I still don't want you to relate to me as if I'm an authority that you have to agree with. I want you to be able to disagree with me, and you do it regularly, and I appreciate that. Of course, I like it when you agree with me too, because this reinforces my point, but that does not have to be the case. And in order for that possibility of disagreement and different views and an enriching of the picture to take place, there needs to be the putting forward not just a list with a description of things that are supposed to be associated with the INFJ, but also a kind of theory. You know, a friend once told me, Ren, you're a bit like Freud. Enjoy the reference. Everything that comes into your field of vision, you have to theorize it. You have to create a theory about it. So I theorize everything, and music is going to be the same. I'm not going to tell you INFJ is like this kind of music, INFJ is like that kind of music. I'm going to offer a theory as to why I think INFJs are attracted to certain kinds of music more than other types, and why in this respect they might be like clarified to be distinct from, let's say, INFP types or INTP types, for example. I can use the INFP type and the INTP type as my examples. So what are INFJs attracted to music-wise? We'll just assume that, you know, INFJs are no different from other people insofar as they are going to be attracted to things like melody and texture and harmony and good singing and good rhythm and catchy songs. You know, there's nothing inbuilt about being an INFJ type or any other type that is going to make you more attracted to those features, because music has that power of attraction. We all know it, and we INFJs are no different from other types in this respect. However, of course, within the realm of music that has these qualities, or has at least some of these qualities, well, then there are obviously a lot of different subtypes, because there's a lot of decent to good music out there, but only certain specific elements turn out to be popular. So certain elements are selected by people of certain types, and other elements are not selected. Now, of course, sometimes those elements are not selected for contingent reasons. They could have become selected, labels picked them, and they became successful. But I think there are other reasons why, and those reasons can be explicated by looking at the structure of the INFJ type. Now, the INFJ type is essentially built around a cognitive stack, NI-FE-TI-SE. This is something you know very well. I'm going to argue that here, in order to understand and appreciate INFJ's aesthetic leanings when it comes, in this case, to music, but it could be, in theory at least, expanded to include other types of art, is going to be, I think, directed by the NISE axis primarily, and then with the FE function also. What I'm getting at is this. I think that's what fundamentally differentiates an INFJ from, let's say, an INFP or an INTP, is that they're dominant intuitive types, so dominant perceivers. Dominant perceivers defined by a very clear demarcated openness. When you're a dominant judger, it's not that you're not open. Of course, INFPs and INTPs are open type to some extent, but whatever piece of content they're exposed to, and that includes a piece of music, is going to go through a grid, a prior grid that is a judging grid, this grid of judgments where certain types of music, certain patterns, certain motifs are going to be excluded as not fitting within their taste, and others as fitting within their taste. And I think that the advantage is that these are types that can develop a quite well-defined taste, because part of what defines a taste, is not just like being seen as having taste, because that's subjective, and I'm not sure there's a lot of meaning behind the notion of having good taste, but having a taste, definitely. When people can recognize the kind of taste you have. It's about liking certain things, there being patterns in what you accept into the circle of things musical that you enjoy and like to listen to, but also implied in that, what you exclude. So the positive aspect is that you have a defined taste. The negative aspect potentially is that you can be a little bit dismissive of stuff that your judgment has not accepted into its own realm. That's why, in my experience, purists of all sorts about music, there's a lot of INFPs among purists, and some INTPs as well. I mean, that's just my experience. Because again, I think the dominant function of judgment facilitates this. With INFJs, and I think to some extent this applies to INTJs as well, you'll notice it's harder to pinpoint what the taste of an INFJ is in music. They can like lots of different things, and they can, in theory, like stuff across the musical spectrum. And within a genre, they can like a lot of different subgenres with a lot of different styles, lots of different motifs, and so on and so forth. And I think that this can come across to other types, for example, dominant judger types, as not having a clearly different sense of taste. But what they don't necessarily understand, if they don't understand how we function, is that it's not so much an absence of taste as an inherent, inbuilt, and productive openness to all possible kinds of music that speak to our NI and speak to our FE. And when I say NI, I mean NISE, because these functions come together. It's an axis. Openness to all kinds of possible stimulation by music that evokes universal themes. And that, I think, distinguishes us from INTJs because they're FI users, and also INFPs because they're obviously very strong FI users. FI tends to be individual and subjectivistic. FE tends to be intersubjective, and insofar as it is intersubjective, it's not subjectivistic. It's pushed toward the outside world, which means that in my experience personally, for sure, but also with FE users, particularly INFJs I've met, there's this tendency to be moved by music that is, on top of having the qualities I mentioned at the start of the video, has a universal kind of vibe to it that speaks and potentially applies to the entire of humanity. So you could pick like a song like John Lennon's Imagine, or like Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and you'll understand why I'm referring to these songs later. And a lot of other songs, and maybe some classical music as well, or some ambient music, but whatever has a kind of tendency to unite humanity, whether it be in the lyrics or in the implicit musical patterns. In fact, sometimes INFPs react against that because they find it almost borderline vulgar to not be distinct enough that you apply it specifically to a taste, to an individual. But for an INFJ, I think this is a crucial element to why the INFJ is going to enjoy the music. When it pushes so far that it becomes a matter for ENFJs, for example, FE dominance, the universal element is in some sense to me overly developed. It's not objective. This is my position as an introvert, as an INFJ who's not a dominant FE user. Like my dad, for example, he like a lot of FE dominant music as I see it. It can be good music, but it's especially good if he can somehow make sense of it within a network that defines this music as having been accepted and defined as good music. I think INFJs have that a little bit, especially if that criterion can link, again, across humanity as a whole. But because they're NI-dominant, they are, on average, going to be a little bit more picky in their taste than ENFJs, I think. But not quite as picky from the INFP perspective, because they have this inbuilt openness. INFPs may experience this as a lack of discernment in taste. But it's not a lack of discernment, and I think any INFJ will relate. It's very deliberate. I think INFJs, in some sense, resist pressure to focus their taste on certain types of music. They want freedom, and they don't relate to music just as music. It's a medium to connect with the entire world of humanity and human ideas and interconnectedness that applies to the entire field of aesthetics from an INFJ perspective. It's nowhere near as subjectivistic as it would be for an INFP. So the INFJ has a different approach from the INTP, from the INFP, from the ENFJ to music. And I've tried to lay out my theory in this video. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Drop a like, a comment, consider subscribing, and I'll talk to you soon, guys. Bye-bye.